Welcome to the Film Geezers podcast. Hello and welcome once again to the Film Geezers podcast. I'm Robbo, I'm here as always with Cheeto.
Hello.
And in today's episode we're going to discuss somewhat of our favourite plot twists in films. So I've got to warn you there are going to be some spoilers, so be aware. So we might as well just get straight into it.
Yeah.
So our first film is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's the 2019, directed by Quentin Tarantino. And the plot is two guys, Rick Dalton played by Leonardo DiCaprio, who's an aging star from TV westerns, and his stunt double Cliff Booth played by Brad Pitt. They live out their bromance in the Manson era 60s. Great film, isn't it? I think.
Yeah. One of our favourite Tarantinos.
Yeah. And the twist is because it's kind of like, I guess it's fictional, but there's factual elements in it, because Rick lives next door to Roman Polanski and Sharon Tate, and it includes like the family as well. So the Manson family, they're planning on obviously killing Roman Polanski and Sharon Tate, but for some reason they target Rick instead. So they storm his Hollywood Hills mansion, where Cliff, high on acid, is there to welcome them. And then there's a brutal brawl, it's quite brutal, isn't it? Yeah. Involving a pit bull as well. And the fury of a flamethrower, which I think is probably one of the great closing scenes. And Revisionist History rewrites Sharon Tate's fate. She doesn't die, the Manson killers do.
And this is the thing, while I was watching it, because it's a decently long film, just under 3 hours, I believe. While you're watching it, there's obviously some stuff that's made up, but there's also, you see some stuff and you're like, oh, that actually happened. And I was like halfway through the film, I was just thinking, how is Tarantino going to deal with the Sharon Tate murders? Because it's almost kind of like building up to that, isn't it? You know, and you're like, oh no, like is something bad going to happen to her? But then how the scene is, they pull up and it acts like the car's going to go to Sharon Tate's house, but no, they end up taking a right to detour to Rick's house, don't they? And I think this is the reason why this is one. I believe that is that's the plot twist, isn't it? That they actually show up at Rick's door instead of Sharon Tate's. But I think that scene is one of Tarantino's best, and it just is full on Tarantino.
Yeah.
You know, like you think of the most Tarantino scene, think of like Kill Bill with the fight scene there. It's just that, and it's just all, like you said, it's all out gory brawl, and it's really funny as well, isn't it? Yeah. You know, because don't get me wrong, the film has very comedic aspects to it, but it's kind of, we never saw fight scenes or violence to that degree in this film, and it just comes out of nowhere. Yeah, but it's like what you expect from Tarantino, isn't it?
Well, it's like Cliff Booth, which is Brad Pitt's character, has a run-in with the Manson family. Yeah, at it's the Span ranch. He
picks up one of them, doesn't he?
Yeah, takes them back to the ranch where they're living at, and then he has a run-in with one of the guys
because
there.
It turns out they're living in one of his old sets in the Western set, and he knew the guy there, and they weren't too happy that he was like kind of on their turf. So he kind of insulted them as well, and he beat one of them up, and that's the reason why they go after Rick. But it's just trying to explain that last scene is just
Cliff's is he an ex-Marine? He's definitely he's definitely a
ex-military, isn't he?
Veteran, isn't he? Yeah. And he's trained his dog to go for the nuts.
But no, because I don't know about you, but at the time of that scene, I got my heart racing because I was like, oh no, Cliff can't die. Like, you can't kill Brad Pitt. Yeah. Because obviously he's one of the guys, one of the Manson family's holding a gun to him, and there's three of them, and there's two women, and there's a bloke holding a gun, and he ordered, especially because he's got that previously he gets a cigarette off of a hippie, isn't it, or something? Yeah. And it's dipped in acid, isn't it? Yeah. And you're like, oh, so he's under the influence, and this is not going to end well. But then obviously, like we said previously, his pit bull is trained, and he goes for this geezer's bollocks, and just it's carnage and it's mayhem. You don't know where to look, and it's just like they're just getting absolutely battered, aren't they? I believe Cliff, some lady runs at him with a knife, and he like disarms her, and he throws her into the wall. She has like her face is caved in and whatnot, and then obviously she gets set on fire. She runs at...
she ends up in the pool, doesn't she?
Yeah.
And then you just see the garage door open, and there's Leonardo DiCaprio with a flamethrower.
Which is the best. Because obviously the flamethrower comes from
one of his films.
Yeah, earlier in the film. I believe it's in like the first half hour. He's sitting with Al Pacino, which is this agent, isn't he?
Yeah.
And it goes through a compilation of all of Rick's films, because basically this whole film was set during the dying years of the golden age of Hollywood.
His sort of career is sort of a pastiche on Clint Eastwood and Steve McQueen.
Yeah.
So he starts off on this TV western, and then he feels like obviously he's trapped in that, and then he goes off to make like spaghetti westerns.
Yeah.
And then I think there's a scene where they've added him into The Great Escape as Hilts. So that's the kind of factual fiction kind of as well, which I think is pretty good.
While he's speaking to Al Pacino, it's like a little compilation of all the films he's been in, and in one of them he's an ally in World War II, and he's got a flamethrower, and he's just, in Tarantino fashion, he's just flamethrowing these Germans, and then at the end it's just because this is the thing, while this is going on, Rick's in his swimming pool outside, and he's got his headphones on, and he's listening to the radio, and he doesn't know what the hell is going on. This lady, she's basically blinded because she gets bitten down below as well, doesn't she?
She's got blood dripping.
Blood dripping down her eyes and whatnot. And she runs in the pool. Rick's like, "What the hell is this?" And he goes. You see him go away, and you're like, "Where?" You can see this lady struggling, can't you? And you're like, "Where's Rick gone?" And then just the garage. I believe the garage door opens. There's just him coming out with a flamethrower, and it's just the most Tarantino ending, but it's absolutely brilliant. And it's obviously the twist is that they go to Rick's house, but also I think a twist could be the tone is completely flipped on its head.
Yeah.
Like the whole tone of the movie, it's like I said, there's nothing, no themes of that last ending scene in the movie at all, and it just gets flipped on its head, and it goes 100 miles an hour, and it's just the perfect way, at least in our opinion, the perfect way to finish off Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And that's why it's such a memorable ending, isn't it? Because it's just the most if you're a fan of Tarantino and you've not watch this film. I've seen a lot of people not hating it, but not necessarily like it, but if you can understand where Tarantino's come from, it's an absolute brilliant film, and you'll love it because this ending is just batshit crazy in it. So
I read recently that he's planning on a sequel to Kill Bill.
Is he?
I think it might be a prequel because he's going to have Uma Thurman's daughter in it.
Oh wow!
And that's going to be what he said his 10th and final film. So
I like the Kill Bill films.
Maybe, I don't know. I think it's rumoured at the moment. So
we're Tarantino fanboys, aren't we? Really, but no, it's a brilliant twist and brilliant film as well. So
okay, that's great. Next film, you probably haven't seen this.
No, I've never seen it, so you're going to have to take that.
I'll skip through it quickly because it's called Identity, and it's a 2003 film directed by James Mangold, and the plot is that when a vicious storm breaks out in the Nevada desert, 10 people seek refuge in an isolated motel. They quickly learn that there's a homicidal killer among them as they're getting knocked off one by one. So it's like a storm, 10 people hide out, because obviously roads are blocked and things, and they go stay at this motel, and then one by one each of them is being killed off. Now the twist to this is that the murderer is a little boy, which is explained as we learn that each of the 10 people are manifestations of a man who suffers from extreme case of dissociative identity disorder. So he's got multiple personalities. This is all happening in his head. And what's happening is he's having he's having therapy to get rid of, and as each personality leaves, that's when they die. Which I thought is a pretty good concept.
That's quite smart, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I thought, it was a pretty good concept for a film.
Like I said, it's one I've not even heard of, to be fair.
Yeah.
Do you know, is there any real
this
big actors in it?
There's John Cusack, Alfred Molina, and John C. McGinley. They're
big actors, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's one of those films that really doesn't get talked about.
Yeah, so I must admit, I've never even heard of it before.
I've not seen it, I think, on TV recently either.
I have to do a wish list search for that then.
Well,
that sounds quite interesting.
It's worth giving it a look. Yeah. Anyway, I mean, there's been lots of films like that where things have been happening in people's heads, and that's kind of the twist and stuff. But I just thought it was a really good idea for a film.
I can appreciate really original ideas, so I'll check that one out.
Okay, so I'll move on to the next one, which is Gone Girl, which is 2014, directed by David Fincher. Now, he's got quite a few films on this list, because he seems to be the master of the plot twist. Yeah. So the plot is stars Ben Affleck, and so when he's as Nick, so when his seemingly perfect wife Amy goes missing, philandering Nick becomes a prime suspect. And so the twist is that after learning that Nick cheated on her, Amy meticulously planned her disappearance to make it look like Nick killed her. Later, when she decides to return home to Nick after seducing and murdering her old ex-boyfriend to make it look like he kidnapped her, she gets artificially inseminated with Nick's semen to ensure he stays with her. Now, this is really quite a messed up film.
Yeah, it's just depressing, isn't it?
Because it starts off normally, it's like, they seem like this perfect couple, happily married, and then it gets to kind of like the middle, and he comes home and she's not there.
Well, what I like is he does set it up to be just another family member gone missing film or whatnot, and the husband has to go out and search for her, but it's so much more than that, because like when he's obviously the main suspect, you can see how much it affects him, and then all the blame gets put on him, and gradually you see his character change, don't you?
Yeah. Because then, obviously he finds her diary later, and realises that she's been meticulously planning this for a while, even to the point of the actual crime scene. Because when the police come in, they say, "Well, there's signs of a struggle, but it looks like it's been staged."
Yeah,
and she's even actually she actually cuts herself so she can bleed, and then she cleans it up so that the forensics will find this blood that's been cleaned up.
Yeah.
And things like putting money on buying lots of things on a credit card. Because
it's later revealed, isn't it, that she hid them in a garage, didn't she?
Hid them in his sister's shed for the police to find. Because
but that was
it wasn't. It was his dad's house, wasn't it? That was empty. And that was part of it, because it gave him a reason, or her, to actually kill her, because this
all the stuff
arguments
he wanted,
over the things, because it's really. And then she goes off. She hooks up with this old boyfriend, and he hides her out at his house, and then he goes on TV and appeals, doesn't he? And she has a change of heart. Yeah, does an advert. He does an interview on TV, doesn't he? Yeah. And she has a change of heart and decides to come back. So she kills her ex-boyfriend.
Because basically what happens is that Nick gets a top lawyer, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And she can actually see that people are starting to believe Nick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because first, everyone, of course, there's a mourning period. There's a scene where obviously at Amy's like not a funeral, but it's almost like a gathering, isn't it? You know, basically a funeral. And after that, everyone's against Nick. Even I think Fincher even tries to make you against Nick almost, because he adds in a cheating scene, doesn't he? And then while this is going on, he flashes back to when they first meet and whatnot, and the points leading up to that, they show this huge fight, and he shows Nick as this really bad guy. And then when Amy sees because obviously she's watching on TV and stuff. When Amy sees that Nick is coming out and saying all this stuff, she sees that she's fighting a losing battle, so she kills her original plan. She just dumps it. She kills her ex-boyfriend, which is Neil Patrick Harris, isn't it? And in a real brutal way.
Because he was obsessed with her, wasn't he?
Yeah, and
and it's actually during sex, isn't it?
Yeah,
he cuts his throat,
slits the blood everywhere, and it's really brutal.
And then she sets up the scene, makes it look like she was a kidnapped victim.
Right, because the reason why she wanted him to have sex is so they can see her vaginal cavity, and she plays it like she's been raped.
Yeah,
and she comes back covered in blood. She covers herself in blood.
But there was one female police officer didn't believe her.
Yeah, no, she was on Nick's
side.
She's
trying to question her in the hospital, and the rest of them are trying to just get her out of the way. And they go back to this kind of, because he doesn't trust her anymore. Nick now
he hates her. Yeah, he actually calls her "see you next Tuesday" as well.
She's like, well, maybe we should have a baby. That might change things.
Yeah.
Because I think what happened is did he have a vasectomy and then he had some sperm frozen?
Yeah, he did.
And she went and accessed that. He saw it being destroyed. She accessed it, and she's
now they're going to have to stay together.
Yeah, so she's basically pregnant.
At the end of the movie, all the scenes in which they fight and stuff, that where Nick looks like an absolute dick, actually turns out that he didn't do anything. No, doesn't it? And so Nick's actually he's not a good guy necessarily because he cheated, but he didn't beat her. He didn't do any of this shit that Amy said, or it was portrayed earlier, because it was portrayed from Amy's point of view that she wrote in her diary, wasn't it? There's a scene where Nick was being really abusive to her, and it turned out that he didn't do anything at all. And it's really sad. It's a really sad ending because there's this TV personality, and she's totally on Amy's side, and she's interviewing, saying how great Nick, you must feel so happy that Amy's back and all this stuff. And Nick has to basically lie because he doesn't want to seem like a dick, because people believe Amy at this point, and Nick will get public backlash for this, so he has to basically stay with her. So it's a really, really depressing film from Nick's point of view, but it's a brilliant plot twist, and I tell you what, it's if you want to be just depressed for 2 hours, then watch this film. But it really is I was trying to the way I describe this film is it literally has you on edge the whole film, doesn't it? Because you're it swaps. You go back and forth. You're like, oh, Nick is in the wrong, and you're like, oh no, actually it's Amy. So it's a brilliant film, and it's just one of those films where it's just heartbreaking, really. For Nick and stuff. But it's a brilliant film, and once again, it shows the acting ability, directing ability that David Fincher has, isn't it? So
yeah, like I say, he's got probably another 3 or 4 films on this list. Yeah. Okay, so the next one is The Departed, 2006, directed by Martin Scorsese. The plot is that Billy Costigan goes undercover within the Irish mob to implicate sadistic boss Frank Costello. Meanwhile, Staff Sergeant Colin Sullivan, who's a dirty cop secretly doing Costello's bidding, tries to hunt out the rat. And this is a remake of a Hong Kong film called Internal Affairs. And apparently, when Scorsese made it, he didn't realise it was a remake.
Oh, really?
That's what he says, anyway, so I don't know. So anyway, the twist in this is that Sullivan, his partner Brown, determines Costigan's identity, shoots him in the head in a blinking you'll miss it sequence. After Costigan's funeral, Sullivan returns to his own apartment where Costigan's handler, Staff Sergeant Sean Dignam, played by Mark Wahlberg, is waiting to kill him. So yeah, I mean, it's a really good film. This idea that
brilliant,
you've got Jack Nicholson as well.
He's great in it, isn't he?
The mob boss, and Costigan, who I think gets rejected by the Boston police force. He's given this undercover job, and then you've got Sullivan, who he's kind of been groomed his whole life for this.
He's kind of like a son of Frank, isn't he?
Yeah, and Frank's encouraged him to go to the police academy and become a cop, and then obviously they can exploit that. Then, I really
it's a brilliant film, and it's the only way I can describe the plot is it's a couple plot twists in one, because there's the scene obviously where Sullivan he's been caught by Costigan. Costigan's known about it for a while, but he can't make his move until the right point, and he reveals who he is. Reveals that he's actually part of the PD.
Because they set up a whole task force, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
Try to find out who this rat is.
Yeah, but he reveals that he's part of the Boston PD, and then as he's detained him, it's on top of this building, isn't it? They're going down the elevator, and literally the second the elevator door opens, he just gets shot in the head, and it's obviously Brown, who's Sullivan's partner. And Sullivan's in disbelief because he's like, "What the hell just happened?" You know. And I think Brown gets killed by another rat in the police department, and then it's so weird. Sullivan then kills him to clear up anything, and then it's all good for Sullivan. He's cleared up everything. He goes to Costigan's funeral, and then he goes home. And then Sean's there waiting for him because Sean's figured it out, because he never likes Sullivan this whole film, does he? He always suspects of him, you know. And then Sullivan's just there. He's covered in like almost like coveralls. He's got like his hands gloved up and whatnot. Obviously in like a CSI gear just to cover any tracks. And he just shoots him in the head. And literally the movie ends like that with all of our main characters just dead.
Yeah.
But it's one of those, like I said, you'd think maybe the film would end after Costigan dies, because you're like, oh no, but it's one of those ones where the bad guys win essentially.
Yeah.
Because obviously Frank dies, doesn't he?
Yeah. And
to be fair, even when Frank dies, you're like, okay, that's the film done. But no, Scorsese just adds in these moments of madness, because it's once again, it's like it's a moment of madness because so many characters die in such a short amount of time. Like Costigan dies, then Brown dies, then another one of the rats in the PD dies, and it's mental, isn't it? You know, you can't really process it all. And then obviously Sullivan goes home. He thinks he's in the clear. He can just continue his life as a in the Boston PD, and then he ends up dying. Yeah. It's a brilliant film, and I think it's one of Scorsese's best, really. So
I think it won Best Picture.
It did, and
it's the only film that's ever been adapted from a foreign film to win Best Picture.
Best Picture, and I believe is it Scorsese's it's his only Best Picture win, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
It's
a brilliant film, and if you haven't watched it, certainly watch it.
Okay, so moving on. Next film is the 1941 Citizen Kane, written by, starring Orson Welles. Now, you say you haven't seen this since school, since year 9.
In media studies, I did it when I was about 14, and I've not seen it since, so you're going to have to take the reins on this one.
I'll be quick with this. So the plot. So the film opens with newspaper magnate Charles Foster Kane on his deathbed, where his last word is Rosebud. And if you remember, he dies. Yeah. He's got this snow globe, which he drops, and it rolls down.
Right down the stairs, doesn't it? Yeah.
And so this inspires a journalist to chronicle the enigmatic life of the mogul, uncovering his ruthless quest for power and fortune. So he's on this quest to find out what Rosebud actually means. What is it? Is it some person or whatever? So he basically chronicles his life to become this really powerful newspaper magnate. And it turns out that in the end, Rosebud is the name of Kane's childhood sled, what he had as a boy, which is kind of a bit of a anticlimax.
Yeah, it's random, isn't it?
But what it proves is the tycoon, he had a touch of sentimentality as well, after all. So the last thing he was thinking about on his deathbed was his childhood toy, and probably thinking about maybe when he was at his happiest in his childhood. So, yeah, it's... I'm not sure if that is a plot twist, I don't know.
I think it is, yeah. And people always appreciate us talking about Citizen Kane anyway, but I think it is a plot twist, because it's more a plot twist, not necessarily the story, but it's more about someone's character, which is somewhat different, isn't it? You know, but
because in the film he starts off quite well-meaning, but then he becomes bitter and twisted, and in the end, he's not a very nice person.
No.
He's quite ruthless, and he's just trying to build his power and fortune, and then he just proves that there is something sentimental within him as well.
It's a great way to end the movie as well, isn't it? But
it's often cited as one of the best movies ever made. Wells never ever really achieved the same level with any of his other films.
Wasn't that his it was either his writing or directing debut?
Yeah, it was.
And he obviously won Best Actor, Best Director and Best Writing as well.
Yeah. The writing is contested because
I know, because it's
there's a guy called Herman Mankiewicz who was supposedly contracted to write the screenplay, but he wasn't going to receive any credit for it. But then he changed his mind, and there was a court case, and they ruled in his favour, so they had to share the writing. And because he won an Oscar for it as well, they had to share the Oscar. And I think that ruined their friendship, and they never spoke to each other again. There's actually I watched a film on Netflix about it, starring Gary Oldman, as it's called Mank. And it's worth a look if you're interested in Citizen Kane and the story around the making of it and things.
But like I said, it's one of the best movies of all time, and it's if you're a film fan, you've got to really watch it, innit?
Yeah. So moving on to one of my favourites, Planet of the Apes, 1968, directed by Franklin J. Schaffner. I think most people know the plot now. That you've got 3 astronauts crash land on an unknown planet after travelling at light speed for 2,000 plus years. In this new land, non-human primates, gorillas, orangutans and chimpanzees rule the world, while humans are considered second-class citizens. So it's kind of a world that is upside down. They think that they're on another planet, because obviously the main astronaut is Taylor, played by Charlton Heston. The other 2 astronauts, one dies, and one's given a lobotomy. Because there's a famous scene where they land in the desert. So they land in the water. The female crew member actually died in hypersleep. They make it ashore. It's like desert. They manage to find, as they're going, they see more and more signs of life, and then they come to this sort of forest, and there's a pool, the waterfall. And they're swimming in that, and while they're swimming, some of the humans come and steal all their clothes, and then they make it up to this field, and that's when the gorillas come in on horseback, and that's the big reveal: is these gorillas riding horses.
What was their original plan?
How do you mean?
Like crash land on this planet. What was their original mission?
They were trying to prove this hypothesis that. To do with time travel, that if you travel away at the speed of light, that because they were like I said, they set off in 1972, and they travelled to nearly 3,000 years in the future. Yeah. So they were trying to prove this hypothesis true, which they did. Yeah,
of course.
Yeah, and so basically. The gorillas come, capture the humans. Like I say, one of the astronauts is killed at that point. One's severely injured. I think receives head injuries. Is operated on by a chimpanzee and lobotomized. So you've got Taylor, who his throat is injured, so he can't speak. And then later on in the film is the famous, get your filthy paws off me, you damn dirty ape, and. So he's one of the chimpanzees. They found evidence of a human civilization that predates the ape one, and they set off to try and prove that humans were there first. Yeah. But then what happens is right at the end of the film, Taylor's allowed to go off into the forbidden zone on his own. Not on his own, he's got a mate, Nova, and they're riding. Famous scene, they're riding along the shore on horseback. They come round this corner, and he sees this half-sunken Statue of Liberty partially melted, and the big twist is that he's been on Earth the whole time. This is Earth now, 3,000 years in the future. There's obviously been some kind of nuclear war or something, post-apocalyptic, and that's kind of, I don't know, somehow the apes have become dominant. They can talk, where the humans have regressed.
Yeah. What was Taylor's words?
Well, here we go. This is 4 years at RADA. Oh my God, I'm back. I'm home all the time. We finally really did it. You maniacs, you blew it up. God damn you all to hell. That's better than Hester, that.
Oscar winner Sean Hester.
But yeah, it is. Yeah, I mean, we covered this in our last podcast, which was the greatest ever movie endings.
Well, it is, and once again,
we talked about the sort of political and social message that Planet of the Apes has got. So we won't go over that again. But yeah, I think
just focus on the plot.
Yeah,
it is. You look at any list, and it's always because it's one you truly don't see. No, and they're the best ones, aren't they?
And I remember when I first saw it,
you just jaw drops, don't you?
Yeah,
like, you can't believe it.
Exactly.
Even though I first watched this when I was younger, and even then I couldn't believe it, because it truly comes out of left field, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And some thought's been put into it, and then the best ones are like, of course, like the whole world looks like Earth, doesn't it? Of course they're on Earth, and like you said, a lot of the plot twist is that the mission actually worked,
Yeah. They went into space, but they crash landed back on Earth, which was the plot twist.
So their mission did work, didn't it? It was successful, but definitely one of the best of all time, isn't it?
I think so, anyway. And you got talking monkeys. What more do you want? Right, moving on. This is one of your favourites. Psycho, 1960, directed by Alfred Hitchcock. Excuse me. We all kind of know the plot. Marion Crane is murdered at a desolate motel by the mentally ill mother of his shifty owner, Norman Bates. So there's kind of a couple of twists, I think, in this one. Is the fact that Marion Crane, she steals $40,000 from her company. She takes off. She decides to spend the night at this motel, and she picks one that's kind of out of the way. And even Norman says himself, since they built the freeway, their business is really slow. Yeah. Then sort of halfway through the film, Marion Crane, played by Janet Leigh, is killed, which is initially is a twist, isn't it? Because it's the first time really that we've seen the sort of main protagonist killed off in the middle of a film. But obviously the big plot twist is at the end, when we find out that Bates actually murdered his mother years before. Then he developed a split personality that made him believe he is his mother, and he murdered Marion disguised as his mother. And the bit at the end that we find at the end is when Marion's sister, who goes looking for her, she comes into the house. Well, you explain it, because this is your film.
So basically, Lila, at this point, Lila and Sam Loomis, who is Marion's other half, they go investigate because they knew something's going on at the motel. Arbogast, the investigator, he's gone missing, and they're like, something's definitely up with this. So they go to the motel, they book a room, and I believe Sam sees someone in the window, or Lila might have seen someone in the window, and she's like, I bet that's the mother, I'm going to go talk to her. So Sam distracts Bates while Lila goes up into the house looking for the mother, and she goes upstairs and she sees that where the mother was, like where her room is, there's like drapes over it and stuff, like no one's lived there for many years, and there's like on the bed there's a shape of like someone's just been slept there, or not even slept there, just on the bed for many years. And she goes downstairs and she sees Norman. Obviously Norman knows something's up. He knocks out Sam, I believe with a vase or something, and she sees Norman running up the stairs. And initially she actually hides down this other stairway, but then she sees it leads to a basement. She goes into the basement, and she's met with another door. She opens the door, and she sees Mrs. Bates in almost a cooler room, and she's obviously facing away from her, and she goes to Mrs. Bates, obviously going to ask her questions, what's going on, and she taps her on the shoulder, and the chair gradually spins around, and it's revealed that Mrs. Bates is actually a corpse, and she's been dead for many a year. And then all you hear is these footsteps behind Lila, and it's revealed that the person who killed Marion is in fact Norman, because he's wearing his mother's clothes, he's got a wig on, he's got a knife in his hand, and luckily Sam comes in and takes him down. But yeah, it's just, once again, it's another one where you, admittedly, right, this film is slightly dated. You can't blame it because it's 1960, but for the most part, Hitchcock does a brilliant job of hiding the fact that his mother is dead, because Norman can speak in a very feminine voice, so he speaks to himself. He speaks as himself, and he speaks obviously to his mother, but it's obviously him the whole time. But when he speaks as his mother, like I said, he's got a very, very feminine voice, so you can up to that point you just think it's his mother. And obviously there's scenes where Norman's in the motel, and like Arbogast, he sees there's a woman in the Bates house, because basically the Bates house is on this hill behind the motel. Obviously that's the corpse, but he makes it look like it's just a woman, you know. But yeah, he does a brilliant job of hiding it, and it's quite a shocking reveal, isn't it, just to see that she is a corpse this whole time, because literally you could believe that she was alive and well, you know, because just the fact when Norman, it's like he's having a full conversation, obviously with himself, but it's between him and his mother in his own mind. But he does a brilliant job of hiding the fact, and it just is so memorable and it's so iconic, and it's not been done better than that, really. No. So
yeah, I mean, it's obviously it's influenced a lot of directors as well. The fact that the character of Dr. Loomis is named after Sam Loomis.
Yeah, Sam Loomis. Yeah,
Dr. Loomis from Halloween. And it's something I don't think we'd seen before.
No.
This kind of because it dealt with things like mental illness, and the idea of this kind of split personality as well. Because there's quite a creepy scene at the end, isn't there, where Norman's being committed.
Oh, the swat a fly scene.
Yeah, I wouldn't hurt a fly.
And he just has this creepy grin on his face, you know. But yeah, I didn't think about that. That's a very good point about the mental health. Obviously, back then, anyone with mental health, they'll just put him into an asylum or something, you know.
Well, I think the idea that, you know, sort of these sort of people who were killers, they thought that they were sort of mad axe murderers.
Yeah.
They couldn't kind of operate normally, and then have a split sort of soul, and then change, and then, you know.
It really does showcase that, doesn't it? You know,
it does.
But you know, iconic film and iconic ending, and perfect ending in my opinion.
Okay,
so
great. Next one is Chinatown, 1974, directed by Roman Polanski. So the plot is the wife of a prominent bureaucrat hires a private investigator who's played by Jack Nicholson, and he plays J.J. Gittes, or Jake, to follow her husband, whom she suspects of infidelity. Along the way, the PI uncovers murder plots, corruption, and a young girl, Evelyn's sister. So Evelyn is played by Faye Dunaway, and she's the one who hires Jack Nicholson's character to basically follow her husband, because she thinks he's having an affair. And the plot twist at the end is that Evelyn actually reveals that her sister is also her daughter, and Evelyn was in an incestuous relationship with her father, played by John Huston. that was kind of quite a big plot twist, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think,
Oh, yeah.
in the end, the idea that I don't know whether that had been covered before.
I just think that
Sort of this idea of incest and
it's just
I mean, you sort of hear about where sort of young girls have a baby, sort of, and they're not married, which was a big, sort of brought shame to the family, and where the parents will bring the child up as their own, and but you don't really hear about the incestuous relationship like that. But yeah, it's a good film, I think.
It is, yeah.
And it's a good twist at the end, I think.
I think it's just one of those ones you're like, what the hell? You know what I mean? Because probably up to that point, like things of like incestuous relationships hadn't been highlighted in that big of like media, in an actual film, and you're just thinking, what? Obviously, people knew it happened, like behind private doors, but just to see it play out on screen, you're just like, what the hell? And how does someone come up with that? But yeah, it's certainly a memorable ending, isn't it? Certainly a memorable plot twist. But brilliant film, and if you haven't seen it, then very, very stylised, very 70s.
Well, it's set in 1937.
Yeah,
and it's all around sort of the water rights in Los Angeles and the sort of political and power kind of struggles for that. And then in the midst of all that, you've got this kind of this twist to the plot, really. And to have John Huston there playing the father as well. But yeah, okay, so move on. The next one is Usual Suspects, which is a 1995 film directed by Bryan Singer. So the plot is 5 criminals plot against the police after being called in for a crime they didn't commit, but begin to uncover a larger plot stemming from legendary criminal Kaiser Soze. The job for Soze goes wrong and only Roger Verbal Kint survives. He attempts to explain to the police what happened, so they let him leave. So, basically what happens is all these 5 guys are pulled in to do because they are kind of the usual suspects. Yeah. They've been suspected of committing some crime, and you've got Verbal Kint, who's played by Kevin Spacey. He's taken into a room and he's interrogated, and he spins his story about Kaiser Soze and this crime that they were going to commit. But the twist is after he's released, they realise that he's actually Soze, which is pretty good because the detective played by Chaz Palminteri, I think I pronounced that right.
Pulled that one out, didn't you?
When Kint leaves, he's looking around the room and he sees all the story, all the sort of the names that he's used and everything, the references. They're all things that are in the office. There's posters on the wall, there's things on the desk, and he sees that he's made up this story on the spot using things from around his office. And then what happens is you see right at the end is Kint walks with like a limp. He's got like an inturned foot, and you see him walking, and then eventually he straightens up. Yeah, and then he gets into this limo and drives off. So that you realise that he's actually this Soze character, and it is a pretty good because he all throughout the film he's kind of this harmless guy. Everybody, because he's kind of disabled, everybody treats him differently, treats him as weak. But it turns out that it's completely wrong.
Well, I actually believe Scary Movie Officer Doofy was based on him because obviously he's mentally disabled. Yeah. But then at the end it turns out that he's the murderer. Yeah. He takes off his moustache. He gets in a nice car and drives off.
Yeah, similar plot twist. Yeah, but I thought it's a really good film. And it's the twist is that the story is completely made up. And the guy telling the story is actually the guy who he's talking about. Yeah. So,
I like is the realization as well. Yeah. Like the gradual realization. Looking around, seeing that he's used aspects from around the room, you know.
Yeah.
But it's a really good film.
Okay. Yeah, so it's worth a watch.
Yeah, 100%.
Moving on, we've got a second David Fincher film, Seven, from 1995. The plot is two detectives, Somerset, played by Morgan Freeman, and Mills, played by Brad Pitt, search for a serial killer obsessed with the 7 deadly sins. So yeah, the Somerset's retiring, and Brad Pitt, Mills, is his replacement, and he's got like a week to hand over, and then suddenly the murder happens, and it's gluttony, isn't it? The first one, and Somerset realises that this is a serial killer, and he doesn't feel that Mills is experienced enough, or doesn't want him to have this case as his first one.
Right, yeah.
So he agrees to stay on, doesn't he, and help him. And then they find, these murders have been carefully planned and meticulously carried out over. There's one that I think he's kept this guy alive for over a year.
Yeah.
And then it gets up to 5, doesn't it? And then this guy comes into the police station, Kevin Spacey, hands himself in as the murderer, and they call him John. He calls himself John Doe because there's nothing. He doesn't exist.
He's a John Doe
system. He cuts his fingerprints off, doesn't he? So, as far as they're concerned, he doesn't exist. And so he offers to lead the detectives to the final 2 bodies that complete the 7 cardinal sins. When they arrive at a location in the middle of the desert, Somerset receives a box from a deliveryman. Inside is the head of Mills' wife. Doe admits he murdered her out of envy, which is the 6th sin, and challenges Mills to murder him, making wrath the 7th and final sin. So it's quite clever.
It is, yeah.
Mills' wife, played by
Gwyneth
Paltrow. Yep. I just couldn't think. But yeah, it's interesting that you got this really clever plot by John Doe that he envies Mills and his wife.
He said it multiple times. Yeah. He's like, I envy you, David, doesn't he?
So that's the 6th, and then the 7th is that Mills is going to kill him.
Yeah.
Somerset, is trying to plead with him not to kill him.
Because William actually says, doesn't he? He's like, David, if you kill him, he's won.
Yeah.
Doesn't he? Because that's what he wants to happen.
But he kills him in the end.
Ultimately, yeah. You get the what's in the box, don't you? Because
what's in the box?
William doesn't tell David.
No.
Does he?
No, he
He's
doesn't.
like, no, you don't want to know and stuff.
What's
and then
in the box?
And then you can see how it's affected him. The oh god, and then that's when William says, if you kill him, he's won. And then David's just trying to hold back, and he just can't.
Yeah.
And he just comes up to him, shoots him point blank, and shoots him a couple more times. But the reason why this film, in my opinion, is probably the best thriller of all time. In my opinion, I absolutely love this film. It's because it's, once again, it's a very common theme with all these, but it's so left field because John Doe, the film sets it up like he's gonna tell them where the last 2 bodies are. All
the good thing as well is you don't know anything about him.
No.
It's just this guy who turns up, walks off the street. You don't know what motivated him. You don't know why he's doing this. You don't know how he's targeted the people that he's killing.
Yeah.
It's just, you're just presented with this guy.
And you don't see John Doe for the whole movie, do you? You don't see it.
Well, you see him once, but he's in disguise, isn't he?
You don't see his identity,
you don't see
you?
him as actual now.
But it's just so left field, and you can see the parcel delivery van come up, and you're like, what's going on?
Yeah.
I thought John Doe was going to tell Mills and Somerset where the bodies are, or tell them information, and then you see Somerset open the box. You just see the horror on his face. He steps back, and then he runs over to Mills. Then he's like, Mills, put your gun down. He doesn't explain it. He's like, Mills, put your gun down. And you're like, what's going on? What is in the box? And then obviously we get that Mills, obviously, what's in the box, and it's just absolutely. With the theme in the background, it's like a heartbeat, and it's just so it does get your heart racing, because you don't know what's going on. You're just as confused as Mills.
Yeah.
And it's just a brilliant ending, and it's just really a sad one because in the end, John Doe does win, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He gets what he wants.
He does, yeah.
And that's what I believe. We often are fans of films where they don't service you, do they? They don't give you the satisfying ending.
The ending that you want.
It's so much more effective with this ending, you know. But brilliant film. If you haven't watched it, I don't know where you've been, but watch it. And once again, it just shows us how great David Fincher is at these plot twists, and obviously this leading into the next one,
which is another Fincher film, which is The Game, 1997. So the plot of this: traumatised from witnessing his father's suicide, financier Nicholas Van Orton, played by Michael Douglas, throws himself into his work, alienating himself from his wife and brother Conrad, played by Sean Penn, I believe.
Yeah.
So for his 48th birthday, Conrad gives Nicholas a ticket for a game that he promises will change Nicholas's life. The game leads Nicholas on a mind-bending journey through his life. As he loses his fortune, he begins to fear the game and the company that runs it, Consumer and Recreational Services. Cornered on a roof by CRS employees, Nicholas accidentally kills his brother, and then horrified he leaps to his death. And the plot twist to this, which I thought was pretty good, is the game is actually nothing more than that, a game. Conrad and Nicholas are both alive. Conrad orchestrated the entire thing to prevent Nicholas from ending up like his father. So, and it's brilliant. It's like, because you think like the game, it's got out of hand, and it's now real, and everything that could possibly go wrong in his life goes wrong, and like I say, to the point where he accidentally kills his brother, and then he decides to end it all. And then he finds out that this is all part of the game, and that everything that's happened is part of the game.
Once again, you don't see it coming.
No, you don't. No,
you just think it's another one of those David Fincher films where it's just, I mean, it doesn't end in tragedy, but you just, it's just so left field. And this is like I said, this is a very common thing with these films, but that's the best plot twist. You totally don't see them coming, do you?
No. So that's just. Brilliant left field kind of twist.
I think he writes his own movies as well, doesn't he?
I think he does, yeah.
So it's just some of the Fincher films. You just think, how does someone come up with this, you know? And how does someone? Because that's one of the hardest things to try and put a plot twist in and actually make it effective, you know. But brilliant film. And if you haven't watched it, certainly watch it, isn't it? You know.
So quickly moving on, the next one, The Sixth Sense, which is a 1999 film directed by M. Night Shyamalan. So the plot is, after a home invasion where he's shot by a patient, Dr. Malcolm Crowe, played by Bruce Willis, he's a child psychologist. He returns to work by attempting to help a young boy, Cole, played by Haley Joel Osment, who sees dead people. So all throughout the film, it's kind of, there's little clues.
Just it's like the door scene, isn't it? Where he grabs the door handle.
There's little nuggets that you're kind of thinking, well, that's kind of odd. And it's not only till the end when you really find out what the twist is that it all makes sense. And the twist is that actually Dr. Crowe is actually dead.
It's the famous line.
I see dead people. But I mean, it's a brilliant film because the first thing is that he just turns up in his kid's living room, sitting on the couch, and although the kid's mum's around, they have no interaction with each other. No. They don't actually talk to each other, and so that's kind of the first little kind of red flag. But then throughout the film, they realise that maybe Cole's gift is to bring, because what's said in the film is that dead people only see what they want to see, and that a lot of the dead people that he is seeing are not at peace or at rest, and that maybe his role is to try and bring peace to them so they can move on. Because like they visit this little girl, they go to this little girl's funeral, and then they go to the house afterwards, and he finds this videotape. Oh, she's telling him where it is. He gets this videotape, and it shows that the mother was actually poisoning her, and she was responsible for her death. and then so she actually saves the sister, the little girl's sister. So he's helped them to get closure and her to move on. But yes, these little red flags. It's like Dr. Crow. He's walking past a restaurant and his wife's there, and he thinks he's late, isn't it? And he sits down with her, and she's completely ignoring him. And you think that's because she's pissed at him being late, but it's not. It's because he's dead and she can't see him.
Once again, I think there's these, like you said, little nuggets, and it's almost like building up a portfolio. And then at the end of the film, only then can you be like, exactly, that makes sense now.
Because his wife's in bed and she's watching their wedding video, and she's got his wedding ring, and she says something like, "Oh, why did he have to leave? Where did he have to go?" And then he lifts up his shirt and he sees the bullet hole, and that's when he realises that he's actually dead.
Yeah.
And so it's a really good film. I think that was Shyamalan's first film, and probably his best, actually.
Yeah. There's a couple of films where it's similar with Shyamalan. You know there's going to be a plot twist, so I'm kind of not that surprising anymore. Yeah. But when he gets this is obviously it's his first debut, and this is probably the most effective plot twist as well, which makes it in turn it his best film. But
I mean, it's not like Signs, which Signs was a good film, but it's about aliens coming to Earth and they can be defeated by water.
Yeah.
And it's the fact they come to a planet like 2/3 or 3/4 full of water. Why? It's kind of like, and I think he just kind of phoned that in, didn't he?
I think a couple of films he tries too hard, but.
So next one, again, one of your favourites, another Fincher film, 1999's Fight Club. Now, I've got to admit, embarrassingly, I've not seen this. It's on my list to watch.
Hold your pitchforks up,
So the plot is an unnamed narrator and his new friend Tyler Durden, played by Brad Pitt, begin a fight club. So I think Pitt must be one of Fincher's favourite actors, because they've worked together quite a lot. Yeah. And Ed Norton's in this as well. So they begin a fight club, and what's the first rule of Fight Club?
You don't talk about Fight Club.
You just did.
Oh my god!
And it turned into a national movement. So, do you want to say this, since this is one of your favourites?
Yeah. So basically, Ed Norton is this guy who basically hates the world. Nothing's going right really for him. He goes to all these meetings, trying to figure out a path in life. Just basically the modern man, just doesn't. He lives the same over and over again every single day, and then he meets Tyler Durden, played by Brad Pitt, who almost they share the same views, but he almost has a different take on life. As in, he's quite outlandish, he's quite out loud, and he's a salesman, and they begin a real tight bond, friendship, like a brotherhood. And one night the night they meet, they go to a bar, and once again with Tyler Durden, he's the same. He kind of hates life at the moment, and he's got a lot of built up frustration. Same with Ed Norton, and they try and release this in a way of fighting, and they go outside the bar, and Tyler's like, "Punch me, hit me," and Ed was like, he's like, "No, I'm not going to hit you." He's like, "Hit me." So he punches him, and he realises it feels good. So they just start randomly fighting, and then you see over the course of, I don't know if it's weeks, days, whatever, you see them meet outside this bar, and they just start fighting, and then more guys show up, and they're like, they hate life, and they have this bit of frustration, and more guys get involved, until it's this full-on event almost. And then the bar staff, he's also frustrated, and he's like, "Yeah, we'll do it. We'll create it, and we'll do it. Our base is going to be underneath the bar." So they meet up. These guys meet up, and Tyler then they start to fall out, him and the narrator, because Tyler brings in these basically these people want to join the fight club, and Tyler almost turns it into a cult. And there's certain things you got to do to join the fight club. You got to shave your head. and they carry out like bombings and stuff around the city, thinking they're doing good. And Edward Norton's just like, what the hell are you doing? And it's revealed at the end that, obviously spoilers, the narrator is suffering from dissociative, I don't even know how to say it.
Dissociative disorder.
Identity disorder. He and Tyler Durden are the same person, and the person that's it's in fact that he's been acting alone. That it's quite a funny scene, because it's quite a funny scene to see someone beat themselves up, because when he's punching Tyler, he's punching nothing, and when he's being punched, he's punching himself and stuff. And he was the one who orchestrated all these bombings and whatnot, and he started the cult. And it's revealed that he went around the country and started other fight clubs. That's how, because there's a weird bit where they're in another city, and these other guys who are obviously sort of like in a trance, they noticed Edward Norton's character, and they're like giving him like the sup, the little head tilt, and he's like, how the hell does this work? And then it's revealed at the end that Tyler is just Edward. He's in his head, and it's odd because it's a chase scene, because Tyler starts beating up Edward Norton, but he's beating himself. It's so weird, and he's almost running from a figment of his own imagination. And at the end, he gives in, and there's at the end the cult orchestrates all these bombings of the banks around, because they view banks as and capitalism as a very evil force. And he just basically gives in then, and you see at the end him and Helen Bonham Carter, who is the love interest. They just hold hands, and the film ends. Where is my mind? I believe it's by the Pixies, isn't it? That starts playing, and you see them hold hands, and all the banks just start crumbling. And it's something totally left field. It really did shock me generally, and like I said, I know, like with you, obviously you've never seen the film, but even though you know the ending, it still is a brilliant film. It's Meatloaf's in it, mate. Meatloaf, my guy, isn't it? He's part of the cult, and he actually has tits. He has tits in it.
All right, okay.
He goes to this meeting, this men's meeting, where they get their demons out, and he reveals that he's got an estrogen rise, and he's got actual tits. But if that doesn't get you to watch the film, I don't know what will. But brilliant film. Okay. And there's a reason why it's considered one of the best films ever made, because it really is.
It's on my list. It is.
It's a very manly film, because it's about men who don't feel like they've got any place in the world, and they go and they get their frustration out by fighting. But it's a brilliant film, and if you haven't watched it, you should watch it. So
good. I will do at some point.
Nice.
Okay, next one is American Psycho, which is 2000 film directed by Mary Harron, and the plot to this is Patrick Bateman, played by Christian Bale. He's a wealthy, entitled businessman in the 1980s, which is the decade of excess.
Don't they call them yuppies?
Yeah, it's in New York City. And he leads a double life as a serial killer. So, it's a really strange film, and it's got a real odd ending to it.
It's one of those ones, though, where even though you revealed the plot, the plot twist, you still don't know the full story, do you?
Because what you've got is I think he first kills a homeless man and his dog.
Yeah.
But then there's other things that happen in the film that make you wonder whether, because there's he goes to the ATM, doesn't he? And it asks him to feed it cats, which he does. And then he picks up a prostitute, and then an escort, and he kills them. He kills a guy called Paul Allen, an associate of his, and kind of takes over his apartment and uses that and stores some of his, because what he does is he chops up the bodies.
Doesn't he say that Paul Allen's going to London, doesn't
he? He's having dinner with his girlfriend, or somebody says that, Paul's moved to London, he's got a job out there, and I had dinner with him, 2 weeks ago. Yeah. So you kind of think, well...
There's odd bits as well, where he's in a bar, and he literally just calls the barmaid. He goes like, "You stupid fucking bitch," and she doesn't react to it. So you're like, did he actually say that or not? You know?
Yeah, because there's a scene where he's running down a hallway with a chainsaw, chasing this woman
in an apartment building. Like, people are going to hear that, aren't they?
And she runs down the stairs, and he drops the chainsaw down the stairwell onto her, killing her. And then the bit at the end is where he's actually he has a shootout with the police.
Because he just goes on a killing spree, doesn't he?
And you think that surely they're going to be, then he gets back to his office and nothing happens. No. You think surely something would have happened.
Yeah, that's right, because he goes to his office building and he's cowered in his office. The police are looking for him. He's crying because he thinks it's over for him, isn't it? And nothing happened. You're just expecting the police to raid his office building any second. Nothing happens.
But like I say, in the final scene, he learns that many of his victims are supposedly still alive, so he may have imagined everything. Yeah. Because he goes back to Paul's apartment, and there's a realtor there, and they're repainting it.
Yeah.
And he's supposedly hidden body parts in this cupboard, and he goes to it, and it's empty. So you're kind of thinking, well, is that happening in his mind? And then he's at a party, and this guy comes up to him and calls him by a different name.
Yeah.
And then he's talking about Paul, and he's saying, well, yeah, I saw Paul in London, last week or something. So then there's still, this is still hotly debated about how much of that is real and how much was imagined. It's like I say, I've only recently seen this film, and it is a really good film.
It is really good, yeah.
And Bale, as always, gives a great performance. I think I've got to say that he's now probably one of my favourite actors.
I think he's a world-class actor, isn't he? And
very much a chameleon, because everything now.
This film is actually it's a comedy. It's funny, isn't it?
It is, yeah. He's a psycho. He's a supposedly serial killer, but there are funny elements to it as well.
Every time he kills, like when he kills Paul Allen, he puts on Huey Lewis, doesn't he? He's like Huey Lewis.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Because music features heavily, doesn't it? Does. Because he likes music, and he talks about music constantly to people as well. But yeah, it is a great film.
It's brilliant.
And it's worth watching. Again, get to the end, and you'll be as confused as everybody else about it. It's one of those that it's not like you say, wrapped up in a nice, neat little bow, and you come away thinking, well, I don't know what that whole thing.
Yeah, like I said, you know just as much before the plot as you do after the plot twist. It's just, it's an absolute brilliant film. I'm glad it's actually got somewhat of a resurgence now. It's actually, I'm glad nowadays it's actually being seen as the great film it is, because it really is a brilliant film, and it's really, once again, he just may have some sort of mental problem, and it delves deep into that, but it doesn't tell you a clear answer. It leaves you wanting more. But yes, a brilliant film, and believe it or not, there's actually a American Psycho 2. Joe, who it's starring? No. Mila Kunis.
Right, okay.
It was made in 2002.
I did not know that.
I've never seen it, but I've seen parts of it, and it is terrible, because it was meant to be a film about a killer girl, but then they decide, no, we're going to get the rights to American Psycho, we're going to slap it on it, so it's not even an American Psycho film. So, but yeah, if you want to give yourself depression, watch that.
So our next one is the first of Christopher Nolan, which will please you. Memento, which I think was that his first film? 2000.
It was his first American film.
Right.
It was his second film overall, though.
Okay. So the plot is Leonard Shelby, played by
Guy Pearce.
That's him. Yeah, suffers from anterior grade amnesia, which means he's got short-term memory loss.
He can't make new memories. Yeah.
Following a home invasion that left his wife dead, now he searches for his wife's murderer with clues he leaves himself with tattoos, notes and photographs. So I remember seeing this. His body's covered with tattoos, so whenever he finds a new clue, he has it tattooed on him.
So really important information he has tatted on him.
And the twist is... Do you want to
the twist is... so basically the whole film is him... either backtracking or trying to found out tried to kill his wife. We're seeing like snippets of it throughout the film in flashbacks. You see his wife being attacked. You don't actually see who's attacking her though. It's just some sort of some guy. You don't see who it is. And from the attack, he has a really bad head injury. He can't make new memories, so he can remember everything pre the attack. But like there's a scene with what's her name, Carrie-Anne Moss, yeah, and he meets her because she says she's got some information, and as she's telling him this information, there's almost a little twist there because it turns out that she actually despises him and she's playing him for a fool, and she calls him every name under the sun, and literally as she's doing this, he's already forgotten it because he just what he has to do, every bit of information he learns, like you said, he writes it down, so he can look back on it. And there's scenes where he's like, oh, okay, what's happening, like and then he discovers that he's like, okay, that's what's happening. But throughout the film, there's his partner, or so we think, because that's what he says, and his partner's played by I'm going to try and get this right, Joe Pantoliano. He's been helping him out this whole time, but you never really know the identity of him. He suddenly comes into his life, and it's odd because there's things that are written down to suggest that he murdered his wife, and it's set in this location, the ending, and it's obviously this fight scene and whatnot, and it's quite tragic really because he learns that obviously Joe whatever his name is tells him the truth and stuff, but by the time he's told him, he's forgotten it, and he's still in the mind that he killed her, so he ends up killing him, and he just walks away, and it's tragic because he is essentially he kills his wife,
yeah,
right,
yeah.
So he's kind of like he's a murderer,
yeah,
but he doesn't know he doesn't know it,
yeah.
And the film ends, and once again, we're sucker for those films where they just end in tragedy, don't they?
Yeah, because the thing is, if you've got amnesia, then you don't know who you can trust. People could come up to you and just a stranger and say, I know you, I'm friends with you, I've got this information, and like you say, that's why the most pertinent stuff he tattoos. But yeah, there's always that you're always questioning, aren't you, and second guessing people,
because Nolan does put in that he was his partner, but obviously he wouldn't know that. And yeah, it's the thing. I think Memento is one of those films you should just go and watch. Like, we could sit here trying to describe it for hours, but just watch it for yourself, and take away what you have seen from the film, for yourself, because it really is. It's one of the most complex films of all time. But when Nolan gets it right, this is when he gets it right, because it's really good, isn't it? So yeah, brilliant film, and just once again another film that doesn't have a happy ending. So if you're expecting that, then you'll be disappointed. But
okay, great. So next one is another M. Night Shyamalan.
You'll have to take the reins of this because I've seen it.
It's The Village from 2004. So the plot is that the townspeople in the secluded 19th century village of Covington fear monsters who roam the surrounding forests, which they call Those We Don't Speak Of. When one of the villagers is stabbed, Chief Elder Edward Walker, played by William Hurt, he allows his blind daughter Ivy, played by Bryce Dallas Howard, to travel through the forest to seek medicine. So it's like this it's a 19th century village. There's these kind of evil things in the woods, so that's a warning to people not to go out into the forests alone, and not to go too far from the village. And so one of the guys gets stabbed. He needs urgent antibiotics, I think. And so against the wishes of the rest of the elders, he allows his daughter to go through the forest to seek medicine. And she gets to this wall, and she climbs over it onto the other side, and you see a road. and this ranger's car pulls up. This isn't supposed to be the 19th century.
Yeah.
And the twist is that they're actually modern times.
Oh, wow.
And he takes her to the ranger station, he gives her the medicine, and he actually takes her back to the where he picked her up, and she goes back, and he doesn't say anything. And it turns out that Covington exists, like I say, in modern times. It was founded by a group of people attempting to escape their suffering in the outside world. So each of the elders, they all had some, like one of them, like I think, lost a child in a car accident, and so they've all had some sort of personal tragedy.
So it's
in
due
their life.
to modernism and stuff. Yeah.
So they decide to build this kind of this idyllic village and really go back to when times were better, maybe. And it turns out that the chief elder, Edward Walker, he actually uses his family's wealth to build this village, and it's designated as like a nature preserve, and they actually pay for the rangers to patrol to stop people getting in.
Okay, yeah.
Even to the point of rerouting air traffic, so no airplanes fly over as well. And the sort of monsters in the woods are actually the elders themselves, dressed up, and that's to discourage villagers from going into the woods and discovering, the world beyond. So it's quite a good film, and it is a really good twist to it, and I think it's a really good twist. Again, one of Shyamalan's, I think, better films. When he gets it
right, it sounds like.
Yeah,
I need to definitely watch it, because that sounds like my top film.
Yeah,
it reminds me a bit of like Maze Runner almost. If that's for more my modern younger audience, it sounds a bit like that. But no, I'll definitely have to watch it.
Yeah,
sounds really good.
So moving on to another Christopher Nolan film, and that's the 2006 The Prestige. Again, I'm embarrassed to say I've not seen this film. It is on my list, probably somewhere around the Fight Club as well. But the plot is that rival magicians Robert Angier who plays him?
That's played by Hugh Jackman,
and Alfred Borden, who's Christian Bale. They're rival magicians that try to outdo each other in a quest for the perfect illusion. Yeah. And I believe, set in 19th century London. Yeah. So I'll let you take this because you've seen it and I haven't.
Right. So, like we've just established, that it's Robert Angier. He's that sort of stereotypical English Victorian time magician. And then Robert Angier, obviously London at the time was the place where all the best magicians go. Robert Angier, he's an American magician. And they originally worked together. They were friends, and one of their bigger shows was Robert's wife. It's like a escape show, and she's put in water in this case full of water, and what happens is Robert he calls out to the audience for someone to see if it's fake or not, and he's obviously Alfred's in on it, isn't he? And he calls out Alfred comes up to the stage, and he ties her up basically, and obviously she gets in the tank full of water, and it's like this escape trick, and it turns out that Alfred wanted to do, because he's basically Alfred is basically the more gifted magician. He was like, I want to try this different type of knot, which is apparently harder to do, and Robert's like, no, just stick with it, and he's like, no, I want to do it, and no, Robert's like, no, stick with it. So Alfred's like, okay, and then Alfred ends up doing it anyway, and this causes Robert's wife she can't get out of her restraints, and she ends up drowning. Robert thinks that Alfred did it on purpose, and basically that's where their rivalry begins. And then the whole film was just them going back and forth, doing different tricks, trying to one up each other, and even to go as far as to try and basically destroy their image. And they go to each other's shows trying to ruin them. And the twist is that Alfred Borden, so basically the trick, Alfred Borden learns this trick called the Prestige, and basically obviously Prestige means the best trick, and it's teleportation. And he goes in there's two doors on the stage. He goes into one door, and then a second later he comes out the other door, and Robert's like, how does he do this? He just can't. And Alfred's getting all the praise, all the people are watching Alfred. Robert's like, how is he doing this? He just can't get it right, or he doesn't know how he can do this. So what happens is he goes, this is odd, but he goes back to America, and he meets up with Nikola Tesla, played by Joey's played by?
As you do.
Yeah, Joey's played by?
No.
David Bowie.
Is he?
Yeah, David Bowie plays Nikola Tesla.
Oh.
It's actually very good credit for him. He's really good in the middle of the film, and he's like, I want you to build me a teleportation device. And it turns out that actually works. Because obviously Robert thinks that there's some magic around Alfred, like how can he teleport, and he's like Tesla ends up building this teleportation device that actually works. And I say works, but that's part of the plot. And all it is that he's got a body double that looks exactly like him. It's a bit reaching, because it's obviously Hugh Jackman, and this guy he's a drunk, and he's obviously English, but this body double looks exactly like Hugh Jackman. This is a bit like because obviously it's Hugh Jackman, but you can look past it. And all the trick is that there's no magic behind Robert teleportation. It's not an actual teleportation device. He basically drops from the stage, and then up in the rafters, his body double appears. And at the end, Alfred comes up on stage, and he's one of the guys to check around the machine. Obviously, Robert doesn't know he's there, because he'll tell him to go away. And he goes underneath because he wants to check because now Robert's the one getting all the praise for it, because he's just more of a spectacle. And Alfred's like, how does he do this? How can he do this? And what happens is he falls into this. How he does it is obviously one of them falls down into it from a trapdoor and escape. That's how they get away. And then the other one is obviously the body double appears. And it turns out that he's fallen into a tank that was placed under the same tank with water, placed underneath the trapdoor. And he's there going, get me out, help, get me out. And he ends up dying. But then it's revealed, this is the twist, finally we got to the twist. Alfred Borden is actually a twin brother.
Right. So
there's no magic behind it. So he goes in one door, and his twin brother comes out the other door. And it's how they pulled off a lot of their tricks. And Angier copied his tricks by cloning himself with the help of Nikola Tesla, killing his clones after each trick. Because you see like loads of top hats at the beginning. You're like, where are these top hats coming from? And obviously it's all his clones. But it turns out
does it clone the clothes as well then?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does.
Because it's like, surely you're just dressing the same top hat and
they clones the clothes. But one of the guy that actually died in the tank wasn't Robert. It was one of the clones.
Oh, right.
And I can't quite remember the details, but Robert's near death and he needs help, and then Alfred comes up to him and he explains how he did all this stuff, that he's the twin and stuff, and he just leaves him for dead basically. But yeah, it's a brilliant film. I'm there trying to explain it, but I just watched the film because it's brilliant.
Yeah.
it's really complicated. That's why I'm struggling a bit to try and, because I don't want to give away all the details, but the plot is once again left field. And it's a bit, you got to look past the whole teleportation thing, because there is, it sets itself up as being genuine, but there is teleportation. Obviously it's impossible, and cloning and whatnot, but if you can look past that, it's an absolute brilliant thriller. And it just I remember once the film ended, my jaw just dropped, because I was just like, I can't believe this is, I just didn't see it happening. So you should
definitely get around to watching it. Yeah.
Right.
Alright, so the next film is Gone Baby Gone, which is a 2007 film directed by Ben Affleck. And it is quite a depressing film, because what it is, because Casey
Affleck's in it.
So anyway, it's set in Boston. Two private detectives, which Casey Affleck and his girlfriend, search for a missing girl believed to be kidnapped by a local drug lord. And the twist at the end is that the kidnapping was faked. The missing girl, Amanda, was living with a local police captain, played by Morgan Freeman, whose own daughter died years earlier. So what happens is, after I think it's a TV appeal by the mother, that's when Casey Affleck and his girlfriend get involved. And they, obviously they're private investigators, they have connections in the community that maybe wouldn't talk to police, but would maybe talk to them. And they find out that the girl's mother, Amanda, is actually, and her boyfriend Ray, they're drug addicts, and they're acting as drug mules for a local Haitian drug lord named Cheese, and they actually stole $130,000 from him. So they think that he's kidnapped Amanda to get the money back. And when Patrick, that's Casey Affleck's character, he actually meets with Cheese, and Cheese denies any knowledge of the kidnapping. And then obviously the film progresses, and they then find the clues that lead them to Morgan Freeman. So it's quite, because what happens is there's this kind of, Cheese contacts him, and they agree to set up a swap in this quarry, and it all goes wrong.
Because it's actually they've been set up, haven't they?
Yeah.
Because they can start getting shot at, don't they? Yeah.
And they think that Amanda's drowned in the quarry's pond, because they retrieve her doll from the water, and then I think after that, Morgan Freeman is the captain of the police department. He goes into early retirement over the whole thing, and then right at the end of the film, they turn up at his house, and they find that Amanda's there, and that his daughter died years earlier. And
he orchestrated the whole thing, did he? It was fake.
They determine that she's probably better off living with them than with her drug.
And this is the thing, even though the captain, he's doing the right thing, isn't he? By because he's like, she can't live with the drug addict mother. Casey Affleck's character, he does have that decision to make, whether he rings the police. He's like, it's not your choice to make, isn't it?
She's going to go, knowing that she's going to get returned back to her into that situation. Is she better off with this couple?
And I think for the most part, it ends quite decent, because she's like cleared up her. She's cleaning stuff, and he actually babysits her, doesn't he? So. But once again, it was one that you came out of left field completely, didn't it? You didn't see that happening at all.
Yeah,
but really good film.
Yeah, it's worth. Again, it's a bit depressing.
It is, like you said, it comes with Casey Affleck.
So we're going to our penultimate one now, which is another film that I've not seen, Shutter Island, which is 2010 by Martin Scorsese. Again, it's on my list. It's probably between Fight Club and The Prestige. So the plot is US Marshal Teddy Daniels, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, which seems to be Scorsese's go-to at the moment. attempts to track down escaped mental patient Rachel Solando, who's responsible for the murder of her 3 children. So, I don't know if you want to do this.
I'll do a quick overview. Yeah. So, Teddy Daniels and his partner, played by Mark Ruffalo, they get sent to this mental asylum. And it's like on an island, so they have to take a boat over. And as they're investigating, they go into Rachel's room, and they're like, there's no way she could have escaped. There's no sign of anyone living here. There's no way she physically could have escaped. Like, the bars are on the wall all intact. There's no holes in the wall. There's no Shawshank with a post or whatnot, you know. And like, how did she escape? And they're looking for this. And it shows flashbacks of Teddy's previous life and whatnot. And it's quite a sad film, because it's revealed at the end, while they're trying to look for Rachel, it's Mark Ruffalo, this whole time, even though he's Teddy's partner, he is actually Daniels is actually Andrew Ladis, incarcerated at the mental hospital for murdering his wife Rachel after she killed their 3 children. The search for Rachel is a game concocted to shake him from his insanity, and Mark Ruffalo's character is actually his doctor, and obviously Teddy, Andrew Ladis, is his patient. And at the end, it shows a flashback of Teddy. The reason why Teddy murdered his wife was because Rachel killed their kids. So it's a really tragic ending. Rachel drowns Teddy's kids in this lake at the back doorstep of the house. Teddy comes home. He's like in hysterics, and he kills her due to that. But it's a really tragic film, and it's just the whole film is played out like it's going to be another police investigation film. But no, it completely flips on its head. And yeah, certainly it's one I can't recommend the film more. This is an absolutely brilliant film, and it's just goes to show how great Martin Scorsese is as a writer, director, you know. But
well, yeah, I'm definitely going to watch that, because it does sound, although you've spoiled it for me now, spoiled the ending, the twist. But yeah, it sounds like a really good
brilliant film.
Yeah.
So yeah,
right. So this is our last one. I think this is probably what we probably consider the greatest plot twist in cinema history.
Oh yeah.
Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, 1980, directed by Irving Kirschner. So, for those people who haven't seen it, the plot is basically Rebel Alliance. They have a secret base on the planet of Hoth. The Empire are sending probes all over the place. One lands on Hoth. The rebels are discovered, so that the Empire attacks, and then the rebels are trying to escape. Luke travels to Dagobah and trains to become a Jedi Knight under the watchful eye of Master Yoda, whereas Han Solo and Princess Leia and Chewie and R2-D2 and C-3PO they escape in the Millennium Falcon, and after being chased through an asteroid field and other things, they make it to Beastman, which is Cloud City. An old friend of Han's, Lando Calrissian, who he actually won the Millennium Falcon from.
Yeah.
So they hide out there. They realise that Darth Vader's got there before them, and that Lando's cut a deal to hand Han over to Boba Fett, because obviously he's still wanted by Jabba. Han's frozen in carbonite. So obviously all these things that, you know, everything that...
It's a very tragic film, really, isn't it?
Everything that could go wrong goes wrong.
Yeah.
Luke abandons his training to save his friends from Vader, travels to Cloud City. He arrives and engages Vader in a lightsaber duel over the city's central air shaft. Vader overwhelms Luke, severing his right hand, separating from his lightsaber. Then Luke climbs out onto this sort of platform, I guess, over the air shaft. And this is the greatest reveal, I think, in film history.
We're actually going to play it out for you here.
So if there's, any casting agents listening, we are available. So, do you want to start?
Right, action. There is no escape. Don't make me destroy you. Luke, you do not yet realize your importance. You have only begun to discover your power. Join me, and I will complete your training. With our combined strength, we can end this destructive conflict and bring order to the galaxy.
I'll never join you.
If you only knew the power of the dark side. Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father.
He told me enough. He told me you killed him.
No. I am your father.
No, that's not true. That's impossible.
Search your feelings. You know it to be true.
No. This is where Luke then falls down the air shaft into like a little another shaft coming off of that, and ends up outside, and then he uses his the Force to
communicate with Leia,
who obviously is his sister, and then the Millennium Falcon pick him up and they go off. So it is, it's left on kind of a cliffhanger of an ending. Like I think Lucas said, it's like the second act of a 3-act play. You know, first act is to introduce the characters. Second act is to kind of put them into the worst situation you could get, and then the third act is where everything kind of comes good and everything's kind of wrapped up. But it is.
It's most iconic.
I don't think you can understand now how big it was.
Yeah.
It was such a close guarded secret that I believe there's so much lore around the actual, the film itself and the making of. But from what I understood, that there's only sort of a handful of people knew the real.
Yeah, I think it was.
Because in the script it said Obi-Wan killed your father.
Yes.
And that's what the words that Dave Prowse spoke, and that's what Mark Hamill was reacting to. But I believe just before the scene was filmed that Irving Kirschner took him to one side and said, actually, the line's going to be, I am your father. I think it was him, Gary Kurtz, who was a producer, and George Lucas.
Well, the only people who know it, And he's like, if it gets out, we'll know you did.
Because they were worried about leaks.
Obviously, a big thing. This was before the internet, so there's no spoilers getting handed out on the internet. And because I think Dave Prowse has been accused of leaking information to the press and talking to the press. It was a huge, because back then as well, it's like distribution. Films would be released in different dates in different territories. So you could have like 6 months between a film being released in the US and being released in the UK. So obviously there is going to be some element of spoil. Yeah. But like Cheeto said, you didn't have the internet, so there wasn't really any way of spoiling it. No, 100%. And it's crazy because Lucas literally he wanted to add a bit more spice to the movie. He just added it in. It wasn't. He didn't plan on making Vader his Luke's father. He's just like, I'm gonna add this in, and it's crazy as well because there's a little. It almost sounds like he did plan it, but he even come out. He said he didn't plan it, and it's odd because Darth Vader is father in Dutch. Yeah. So it's just a little tie-in, but he didn't. He just wanted to. People think that Star Wars has been meticulously planned, but he just wanted to add something into it to give it a bit more stakes, and it's ended up being the most iconic plot twist in movie history, where everyone knows, even if you're not a Star Wars fan, even if you're not a movie fan, everyone knows the "No, I'm your father."
It's often misquoted as Luke, I'm your father, but it's "No, I am your father."
But so iconic, and literally, we had the absolute life-changing experience of seeing it in the cinema. But I wish I was back in 1980 watching it in the cinema for the first time.
Well, not first time. I mean, first film I saw was Return of the Jedi in the cinema.
Yeah.
So I would have seen Empire on the TV. So I wish I'd seen it first in cinema.
In 1980, you know, it would have been unbelievable. But still, it's just, I love because there's loads of videos of people watching Star Wars for the first time, and they're blown away by it because they just don't see it coming, and you really don't. And it's just I can't believe it that Lucas didn't plan it. He just wanted to throw it in, and then that's kind of branched off, and that's what the whole story of Star Wars is about, is between Vader and Luke, you know.
Well, Return of the Jedi, it's all about, the whole saga is, Anakin becoming Darth Vader and then eventually being redeemed in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, because really, that Return of the Jedi branches off from Empire, because it's about their relationship, isn't it? And about obviously Anakin's redemption, you know. So he must have written the story after this, and he's not planned it out, you know. But it's just so iconic. Everyone knows it, and we could talk about Star Wars for ages, can't we? Obviously, we're absolute nerds because we just played that out for you, but there's any way to do it, wasn't it?
Yeah, I totally agree. So that brings us to the end of that podcast.
It's been a very, very good one, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. Yeah. Thank you for joining me again.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us, and hope to see you again next week.
Thank you very much.
Goodbye.
See you later.